What's the crusade you're going on? A mission to live your life's purpose and passion. What if this year is the last year of your life? What's your God-sized dream? What do you stand for? Live your best life this year. Now, that's the time. I'm going on a crusade to change people's mindsets every single day. So are you on board? Hey, podcast listeners, Todd Durkin here. I have a special invite exclusive for you today. I invite you for a new webinar I'm doing on Thursday, February 24th called Finding Fulfillment Now. Anyone interested in that? Finding Fulfillment Now, how to clarify your calling, overcome fear and overwhelm, and create a strategic plan to achieve something more and greater this year. This webinar is completely free. I invite you to sign up today. All you have to do, hop over to gsd.todddurkin.com. Of course, after you listen to today's show, gsd.todddurkin.com, sign up for the free webinar, and I promise you, it will help you find fulfillment now. Welcome back to another episode of the Todd Durkin Impact Show, and I am so fired up, more than ever. And when I say more than ever, you're in for a treat today. I've got Dr. Clay Whiting in the house. Dr. Whiting, welcome to the show.
Thank you, TD. So excited to be here today.
Man, let me tell you what, folks. When you hear this story today, you mind if I call you Clay, a new member of the family? And folks, I told you back in early January 2022 that I'm going on a crusade to change lives and create more impact than ever before. And I was having a calling to save lives, change lives, create more light to this world. And it was a call, a crusade across the entire planet, looking for people, scouring for people of all ages, races, shapes, and sizes to go deeper than ever before, to create their God-sized dream. And man, oh man, today is going to be special. Let me just share Dr. Whiting's bio with y'all. Check this out. Clay Whiting, MD, is one of the newest Mind Right Maniacs joining the 2022 Get Your Mind Right Crusade. Dr. Whiting believes in the whole person, mind, body, and spirit, approach to living life to its fullest potential. He has a unique perspective of our global society, having spent the last 30 years soul searching and striving to understand the human experience from his early days at Creighton University as a medical student there, to wearing the uniform proudly as a U.S. Navy Medical Corps officer. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
To building his foundation as an emergency medicine resident at Harbor, UCLA, and now serving as a board-certified emergency medicine physician as a frontline warrior and hero the last 19 years at Scripps Mercy, San Diego. And I cannot wait to talk about this today. Dr. Whiting wants to be an engaged voice in representing the everyday heroes serving as frontline healthcare workers 24/7, 365 during the last 2 challenging years of our global pandemic. He wants to break down mental health barriers and overcome stigma for physicians and the entire healthcare team so as we can share our stories to work together to heal and unite. Let's inspire one another to stay strong and continue to care for our fellow humanity with love, compassion, understanding, and humility. My friends, we talk about God-sized dreams. We talk about Impact 2022. My friends, Dr. Clay Whiting is in the house. Man, welcome to the show.
Wow. So good to be here with your team and finally get a chance to meet you and sit down today and share and have some fun.
How did it happen? Tell me how you came to the show today, the last couple months, and you just diving in and being part of the crusade. How did all that happen?
So my journey with finding TD Enterprises and your story begins only a short time ago. Yep. It actually starts here in January this year. And the way that it all kind of stumbled upon and happened was that I was speaking with my father, Dick Whiting, who's out in Massachusetts right now. And I was sharing with him that our daughter, Samantha, who's on her way to college next year.
Okay.
She's going to be going to TCU and studying health and fitness. And he said to me, wow, that's fantastic. Have you ever heard of, you should connect with Julie Wilcox and Todd Durkin, since Samantha's going to be interested in studying health and fitness, and maybe one day she could, get an internship or check out and work with their team. And this was on Thursday. I think it was like the 8th of January, I'd say, this year.
You still remember the date?
I think I got to check my fact on that, but I believe it was the 8th. And I took that to heart. I slept on it, and I basically wound up the next morning saying, I'm going to check this guy out. And so I went on, did a quick Google search, and boom, ToddDurkin.com. Next thing I see is this God-Sized Dreams journal planner for 2022. And I just started looking at your website, and within a 5-minute, quick read, I started, digging a little deeper and learning about your impact show, and said to myself, here I am at the end of 2021, having worked in emergency medicine all these years and feeling a little burned out and like I needed to create myself. And all of a sudden, I've got this message of how to kind of start a new journey, reset yourself, and decided that I wanted to look further and explore deeper into this whole program. And here I am, fully embracing, my God-Sized Dreams journal. Basically, that day, I wound up putting in an order and sent that in. And Julie Wilcox, your wonderful teammate, wound up reaching out and making a connection that she had known. Basically, Julie's husband, Gary, and my dad were best friends in college. And that's kind of how this whole connection began. And I embraced, this whole concept of the God-Sized Dreams Planner, and started putting this stuff to work.
So as you say this is, folks, as you listen in, this is our first time meeting live. Right. So all this was happening, and Julie was filling me in about Clay and what he's up to, and the connection. But it all started with the GSD planner.
100%.
Interesting. So go from there. So you get the planner.
So I get the planner, and I basically started looking at your podcast, and I started out with the first one, Spit and Fire, and engaged in your first podcast of the year, and I was like, wow, everything that he is saying to me is making sense. And I think the big thing that I was looking for was this whole get your mind right message, and kind of restarting in terms of, finding that inspiration again.
Yep.
And so I started out with, the God-Sized Dreams Planner, and just basically started putting it to work. Excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
You don't need to say sorry when you get emotional about something, because that means the spirit is stirring, man. That's good. That's why when that was put on my heart to create that, it's exactly why, is what you're sharing right now, folks, as you're listening in, as he's got his God-Sized Dreams Planner 2022 in his hands, looking at that, you can tell in a little over a month's time, there's been a lot of work done in there.
Yeah, I've been putting a lot of work into this. And so, I started basically looking at, okay, how do I begin this new journey? And I decided to, take in your book, the Get Your Mind Right book, and dove right in and picked that up and just started using all these principles as you shared in your book about how to really start putting a new program together.
Yeah. So Doc, it sounds to me the last 2 years have probably been really tough for anyone in the first line of defense. We call them warriors, right? And in your soul searching that you've been doing, it sounds like just at the right time, these things hit and you were in a spot where you were seeking probably more. I'm assuming burnout, all of these things are real. And in the last 2 years, it's been a long, arduous time for everybody. But as a physician and as someone who is literally been in the front line at Scripps Mercy Hospital, folks, if you don't know, Scripps Mercy is in the heart of the city, and you guys deal with some of the toughest stuff. And here you are. This is new for you. This is the first time you're on a podcast. Your comfort zone is probably in the ER, right? When you're dealing with tragedy and gunshot wounds and people who have COVID and all these things where life is on the line.
Sure.
So I want to say thank you first and foremost for what you have done to serve so many people in the last not only 2 years, but 19 years at Scripps Mercy. Obviously, you served in the Navy, and for you to make your debut on the Impact Show, I know your heart is in a place where you have been doing a lot of work on yourself to say, hey, what is next? How do I continue to serve on that? And all the work you're doing in the GSD planner, get your mind right, the things that we preach all the time. I just want to come from a pure gratitude of saying thank you for you being on the journey of, it's probably not easy, but as a I'll call it a high profile position as a doctor and all that you come with, you're like, wait, there's more in the tank. There's something else there that I need to go deeper on myself. So I just come from a place of gratitude.
Well, I really, I do. This is a unique opportunity, and I am taking an opportunity to step out of my own comfort zone and sit down and be inspired by you. And, as I just take a couple deep breaths like I would, in the emergency department during some times of chaos. But this is definitely a new process. And so as we kind of begin this talk and discussion again, I think that, as I looked at your Get Your Mind Right book, okay, if we can just kind of start with that again, those 10 chapters that you shared really wound up, spoken to me. I find myself here as I was using my God-Sized Dreams planner, and I started thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to come up with my big 5 that I want to embark on this year. And in your book, you talk about, the holy hour and basically starting your day with time for yourself and, reflecting and some spirituality. And that's when, I started to try to integrate some of these principles. So I started with my big 5. And the first thing that I was looking at was family. So my relationships with family as one of my big 5 for the year to try and connect. So family, faith, fitness, kind of finance and work, and then fun and friends were kind of the big categories that I was going to work on this year.
Let me ask you a question. Before you even go deeper on that, I'm curious. I've had a lot of conversations with men and women recently who, after 20 years, I've had my gym for 22 years, you're 19 years, are feeling similar feelings of what you've had. Maybe a little empty, a little like there's something deeper. You're like seeking more, searching more. So our listeners can understand after 19 years of why you're here. What would a typical, at Scripps Mercy, what would a typical day be like? Like, why would you be burnt out after 19 years and the pandemic? What's a typical day? Were you working 14-hour days, 12-hour days? Because there was a point you're burned out and that you're working on this. And before I even hear all of the things you're working on in your GSD, tell me about really what led you to like, there's something more to life. There's something more in my faith. What's a typical day like for you at Scripps Mercy?
Sure. So, we kind of talk about the journey here, right? Yeah. I guess my whole pursuit, maybe if we start with like just kind of entering medicine, right? And kind of what's evolved over the last 30 years and where I found myself.
I love it.
And so burnout, I think that's what we're kind of alluding to and getting out.
A lot of people burn out.
Right? Yep. Right. So at the end of 2021, after working through the last 2 years of a pandemic where there was so much unknown from the very beginning stages of this pandemic, there was a lot of fear. There was, all these emotions of just kind of working in the front lines that were kind of inflated at a new level because of the pandemic.
And you're in the middle of it. You're making decisions.
I've been working in the middle of this from day one.
And leading a team of how many people?
So in terms of our emergency department itself, we are seeing 65 to 70,000 patients a year that come through our emergency department.
Wait, one more time?
We're seeing 65,000 to 70,000 patients a year. So
in ER?
In the emergency department.
In one hospital?
In one hospital. Jeez. You got that right. And for myself, I've been working on average probably 15 shifts a month for the last 19 years.
And a shift is how long?
And a shift varies from 8 to 10 hours, basically. Okay. And it's basically a, start to finish. So emergency medicine is a 24/7, 365 job. We work, nights, weekends, holidays, if the ER never shuts down, so to speak.
Right.
So, at Scripps Mercy, we are a level 1 trauma center, and we see any and all comers that come through that emergency department. And, the front lines through the last couple of years have become a bit more challenging.
Yep.
In dealing with, COVID and the whole pandemic. So it has led to, some increased stress that you manage on your daily basis. And I think that the big thing for me, Todd, is, having the courage to kind of just stop and pause and identify that there was some stress involved in kind of that daily work. Yeah. And, there would be times, during shift work where, you're working at 3:00 in the morning, and you've been managing everything at home and in your life, and now you're serving your fellow humanity on the front lines at the bedside, taking care of people. And when this whole process of kind of reinventing myself in 2022 began, I started to think to myself, through those morning reflection periods that you shared, as a good way to kind of get your mind right. I started thinking back to myself, 30 years back in med school. And so my first shift started on January 10th this year. And it so happened to be that, middle of January on the front lines, we were experiencing times that like we never have before. And what I mean by that is the emergency departments were crowded. We had all kinds of healthcare workers, ancillary staff members who were out sick themselves with COVID. So we had staffing shortages. We had shortages on space to care for patients. Yep. And we were dealing with all kinds of new challenges. For ambulances arriving to the emergency department, where we would have patients waiting 4 or 5 hours in an ambulance just to get into the emergency department. I was seeing patients that had been waiting 16 hours in the triage area just to get back to a hallway bed to be seen and cared for. And you start stacking on all these challenges, and both the patients and the staff members were feeling a certain level of burnout. Because patients obviously are upset and angry that they've been waiting, suffering, in pain, and providers are trying to do their best with the resources that they have available. And so it led to some challenges. And so you could feel some of that kind of compassion burnout that we as providers on the front lines were experiencing. And so, interestingly, for myself, as just a little exercise of identifying that, okay, I know I can do better. And, reading your Get Your Mind Right book and applying the principles of 1% better each day, I just decided to kind of set a reset button. And the way that I did that was I tried to put myself and imagine myself 30 years ago as a second-year medical student who was fully committed and engaged into my own education at that time, at Creighton University. And at that point in time in my life, I didn't have a family. I didn't have all the other challenges of being, a husband, a father, a son, an uncle, all of these other new relationships. And I had that 100% focus on just kind of finding and learning about the human body and becoming a physician with a certain level of compassion for the world and kind of look and view of the world. And so it just so happened that midweek in January, as I'm going through this process, I'm putting on my scrubs to go to work.
It's like at your uni.
And once you put those scrubs on, you're getting in your zone and you're getting ready to, be at the bedside and care and deliver. And so I decided at that point in time to bring in a photo that was from my third year of medical school that I could use to basically see that smile and that level of compassion. Because as you know, we've all been wearing masks for the last 2 years. And we wear, masks day in and day out, throughout all of our shifts. And we haven't been able to see each other's smiles or necessarily interact in the same way of kind of the traditional doctor-patient relationship has been. And so I just started to really try to rediscover and figure out, okay, how do I get my mind right and get back to kind of a time of feeling that same level of energy, compassion that I did as a third year medical student? And that's where, in using your book and these different principles, the impact, right? The acronym that you share of, living inspired, mastering your craft, playing at world class, taking action, using a condition for greatness and being tenacious. I just, as I've been processing your message that you're sharing, that's when, I just felt like, okay, this inner desire, this burn, this level of greatness to, perform at MVP status is there. And I just need to simply kind of slow down and put this work in and apply these principles of the God-Sized Dreams program and your Get Your Mind Right program.
Would you say that was a moment in time? Or it was a process over a few weeks because you're burnout, you're tired, you're feeling like I call it the juju. You're missing the juju, you're missing the juice. And it was like you were driving home from a shift one day, you're like, I got to do something. And it was a shift? Or was it listening to the message over a few days and weeks that said, okay, I'm back on track?
So the way that this all kind of happened for me is at the end of 2021, in December, I worked 8 out of 10 shifts, my last shift being on the 26th of December.
Okay.
So I was kind of stacked through the Christmas holiday season. That's just kind of the way that emergency medicine works, so that your colleagues can have some time off and you're just in the zone, focusing and working. And all of a sudden, I now had my break to transition into 2022. And basically, we had a family holiday that was planned to go to Cabo to start the new year.
Yep.
And on December 31st, as I'm sitting down watching some football, doing the bowl game series, all of a sudden I'm asleep 2 hours on the couch. And I'm like, something is not right. This is not Clay Whiting on vacation, feeling under the weather and falling asleep on the couch. And what do you know? I wound up coming down with COVID myself. On January the 2nd, the morning of, I had tested positive, and we were supposed to go on our family vacation starting on the 3rd. So all of a sudden, I found myself with the first time having COVID, being quarantined, not feeling well, laying down in bed.
And that was your first time getting COVID?
That was my first time getting COVID.
Wow.
That was the first time. And it was actually during those kind of 5 days of not feeling well that all of this process started to kind of fall in place. I was a little upset. Yep. I was a little disappointed that I could not go on this journey and be with my family, whom has been, I would be remiss right now without kind of blessing my wife and my daughters and my family for all the support that they have provided over the last, ever since I've been in this career in emergency medicine. But particularly the last couple of years, the impact that this whole pandemic has had on, frontline healthcare workers from day one until, present day.
So was your COVID experience, how bad was it? Were you pretty sick?
My COVID experience was nothing. Fortunate for the vaccine that I just had the, viral syndrome, headache, body aches. The fatigue was the biggest thing. Yep. And was able to power through. But that was kind of my shock to start again on a new path and a new journey in 2022.
Interesting. So that COVID experience forced you to not go on vacay, do some even deeper soul searching. You were already working your tail off in December and for the last 2 years, and that was almost the reset.
It was definitely the reset, and that's what kind of led me down this road. So, if we just stop and pause, over the last 2 years, I've been at the bedside and taken care of 7,000 patients. I've taken care of 3,500 patients a year for the last 2 years. And this is a level 1 trauma center where, just having worked last night and finished my shift at 11 o'clock, I'm carrying 7,000 encounters just alone in the last 2 years. And if I've been doing 3,500 cases, which I have for the last 19 years, I've touched upon 66,000 lives at the bedside at Scripps Mercy alone. And
let me ask you this. Do you feel that's a burden or a blessing?
I find it as a blessing. And that's,
I like that.
As we talk about our passion and our calling. So for me, showing up to the front lines each day, I want to bring my best version of self. I know that people are expecting us to perform at levels of MVP status every day. And as my role as an emergency medicine physician is one of many hats. We take care of anything and everything in terms of from the immediate life threat to, someone that is someone that is there for a more simple type procedure. And, go ahead.
Well, I want to say this is when I say a burden or a blessing, guys, I want you to think about this. When you're burnt out, when you're tired, when you're fatigued, when you're exhausted and you've hit rock bottom sometimes, the biggest blessings in your life, the biggest opportunities in your life start to get on your nerves. You start to think about, man, I'm tired. And you start having this head trash, this stinking thinking that comes into your head about, I got to serve X more people. And you get frustrated at little things, and it trickles into relationships in your life. It trickles into your workouts. It trickles into everything that you do. And it's that constant angst that sometimes appears when you're burnt out, when you're tired, and when you're empty, when you're lost about, man, something's got to change, because you start getting a bad attitude. Now think about that, because we've all been there in the last 2 years. There's times when you start getting that attitude. You're like, man, I need to have my own attitude adjustment. I need to get my mind right, because your biggest opportunities, your biggest blessings, sometimes you start looking at as burdens. People are showing up to the studio and the gym again. You're like, man, you're blessed in one way, and then you start thinking, man, I don't know if I have the juice to serve the people I want to serve. So I love that Doc just shared here that it's a blessing, but it also takes slowing down and reflection upon where we're at right now and recalibrating and rejuvenating again. So like WLWB, when life works best, what the heck am I doing? I'm serving people the way I need to be serving, but the energy has to be there. If the energy's not there because you're constantly dilapidated, exhausted, tired, and fatigued, then you can't think right. You can't get your mind right. You can't get your heart right to serve the way that God has called you to serve. And that's what Doc's calling about, this metamorphosis that he's had through burnout and through in his own episode of COVID, not being able to go on a family vacay, which is needed, is an opportunity. It's a blessing. And now here in 2022, he's showing up just hours after his shift ends, and he's on fire to help people who are in sometimes their worst parts of life. Doc, I'm sorry, I'm a little fired up. You got me all fired up now.
All right, I love that. Thank you for sharing that energy. You know, the energy is palpable, and that's where, having found your team and listening to your weekly impact podcasts, I'm just delighted to be here. I've just listened to Stuck in the Snow. I just listened to your talk with Jose Flores, and just the inspiration that your people are bringing. I just can't say enough that all the messages that you're sending and what you're sharing and creating is impacting real frontline workers to kind of challenge ourselves to continue to redefine, move forward, and be our best selves.
Well, you're inspiring people because you're inspiring your coworkers and leaders too. Let's jump into that. As a matter of fact, your new regime, your new routine. You talked about your big five and what you're doing. What are some of the best practices that you're doing now that are allowing you to have the energy that you need? Because you've got a wife, you've got children, and you've got teammates and colleagues at Scripps Mercy, and of course all your patients as well. And let's face it. You're a better physician when you feel great, right? You're showing up and you're like, I'm on fire. I got this. We got this. And I want you to share a few of your routines, if you could, your best practices that are allowing you to show up as the best version of Clay Whiting as well.
Thank you very much. So, the way that I've kind of been doing this is really trying to slow down and live in the moment and be present.
Amen.
And so, I've been really trying to start my day. One of the challenges that we have in emergency medicine is, with the circadian rhythm disruption and the shift work that happens. So I don't have that set schedule where I've got a bedtime and a wake up time. I don't have a set fueling schedule. I don't have a set workout schedule. But just for myself, showing up to be my best each day, making that, taking that time in the morning of the holy hour and just sitting down and laying out my day, figuring out, what I need to accomplish during the day, developing these new habits and tasks and finding the energy to stay focused, as you say, eat the frog in the morning, get those things that I don't want to get done first off, and then really just kind of planning my day and just approaching what I have to do to perform at my best level as a husband, a father, a physician, a friend. And what I've rediscovered is that my faith is really helping to inspire me, lead me, making that quiet time to start my day with a prayer and really journaling and writing and getting those whispers out of my head and putting it down. I've got my stack of whispers. I mean, this is the work that I've been doing just, since the beginning of January. And there's a lot of things that have happened. Month? This is all in the month.
Guys, if you can't see, if you're not watching YouTube right now and you're listening, Doc's got a folder full of whispers here. I think you need to write a book.
Well, that's what I'm actually thinking that I may have to do with the inspiration.
So later, okay. Oh man.
So the prayer part of it and the spiritual side, I have reengaged with my showing up to church. My mom invited me at the beginning of the year to come back to St. Therese here in Carmel Valley. And so I've made that commitment and that promise where now, once a week, sometime during the week, I'm showing up and listening to the scripture, spending time on my knees and doing some prayer.
Would you say the last 2 years that because you were so busy, your faith got away from you?
So, if we just go to the whole faith talk. I did my undergraduate at Providence College with the Dominicans, and then I went on to Creighton University with the Jesuits, and had some wonderful relationships, with Father Mark Knoll at Providence, who was the one of the biology professors, and Father Ernesto Travieso at Creighton University, who was the founder of the ILAC program, which was a retreat, an 8-week summer visit to the Dominican Republic, where we went down and provided basic medical services to people in need that had nothing. And we lived in the mountains without running water or electricity with a host family for 6 weeks, and learned how to, speak medical Spanish and really see the face of God in these people that had so much spirituality and so much faith and so much passion in their lives, and yet they had no water, no electricity, and the simple life that they lived during that time, all of that experience at Creighton University, and then bringing that to where I am again here today, at the age of 52, and at times feeling like you're running on that treadmill and you're trying to, chase down that next piece of material thing or that next car to drive.
Have you ever considered doing something like that again?
100%. And I think that bringing my family and my daughters on that kind of a journey and doing that through Creighton is one of my God-sized dreams that I'd like to do here, in the coming future.
I had a similar experience. I haven't shared this before on the podcast. When I was at William & Mary, Father Charles Kelly took me to Haiti with about 10 other students. And Haiti's the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. Same thing. Some of the most spiritually rich people on the planet. And I remember going to church for, it was like 4 hours. I'm like, we're going to church for 4 hours? That's a long time. You lost time because the people were dancing and, the spirit was alive. And you talk about not having water and food and everything else. I think it took us like 3 hours to drive to church, which was like 12 miles away. And I still reflect upon that. When you think about slowing time down, you see some of the, quote, poorest people are some of the richest people. Rich in spirit, because their priorities are so different than us here in the States.
Amen.
Right? And it's like, man. it's almost like, how do I go do that again? I need to sign up for something like that again. But the last 2 years, you haven't even been able to do that kind of stuff.
100%.
Right? I love hearing that. You also shared something about your new routine before you check in to your shift at work. What does that look like?
Sure. And I think that's where Scripps Mercy is the oldest hospital in San Diego.
Okay.
It is a Catholic hospital, with the Sisters of Mercy. And I have become more aware, as we talk about combating this burnout for myself, feeling that spiritual calling in medicine, that, the work that I am doing is God's work in a lot of ways. What we witness on a daily basis in terms of the pain and suffering of humanity and the needs of our fellow human being, at times you feel as though you are carrying a cross on your back, and that cross can feel heavy at times.
Yes.
But as long as you get on your knees and you pray and you ask for strength, guidance, and connection, you're going to get the support that you need, and you can overcome. And I will share that this whole process, I've started wearing my cross, and just so you know, TD, Impact 2022 is engraved on the back of my cross that I put on and I wear on my neck.
Oh my gosh.
Each day, just to let you know the inspiration that you are providing me to help kind of carry this message and reset. I want to help spread this word of that it's okay as healthcare providers and as physicians, that we do need to acknowledge that this has been difficult. We can't be afraid and not, be afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
This is a vulnerable time for me. This just sitting down on a podcast and kind of sharing, rewriting your life. I mean, this is, a man-to-man conversation of someone that's always tried to perform at a certain level. I've spent countless hours of education, both in the books and at the bedside. And it's okay to, stop and say that I just need to reset and work on some new challenges.
So let me ask you a question then. Knowing that, as a physician, if you were to speak to your fellow brothers and sisters who are serving as physicians, whether it be doctors, nurses, in the healthcare right now, what message would you send them who've been fighting with you? Is there a message that you would share with them as a fellow frontline warrior?
100%. I would just, give, thanks and praise to everyone that's been walking the walk and serving on the front lines. And I think, most importantly as well, their immediate families that have been living through this as well.
Yeah.
That, without your spouse and your children and their understanding and their support, allowing you to, go in to serve on the front lines in that call of duty where, pre-vaccine, when this whole thing started, there was a lot of fears about, what we were really dealing with, what we were handling, when the pandemic first began, and we were watching this spread into Italy, and we were watching what was going on in New York City. We knew it was just a matter of time before this was going to show up, on our hospital doorstep. So,
staying in gratitude, huh? Staying in gratitude. And that's sometimes hard to do, right? When you're in the middle of it and staying in gratitude. How about a message to those who are currently or have been impacted by COVID-19 in any way? What would be the message there? Because some of it, I feel, is also like a PTSD.
For sure. Yeah, I think that what we're acknowledging and what we're seeing is that this is not just COVID alone, but the secondary fallout and impact. We are seeing, the mental health, the addiction, the substance abuse, all the things that go unnoticed. We've seen rising rates, particularly with the opiate epidemic and fentanyl overdoses. We've had more deaths related to fentanyl in the 25 to 40-year-old population than we had from COVID alone. So
in the last 2 years.
In the last 2 years.
What are the top 5 deaths per se that you see in the ER?
Still the leading causes are cardiovascular death. So, heart attack and stroke are still, the number one killers.
Yep.
And on the front lines the last 2 years, I think all providers will say that we have witnessed and experienced more death than we have in our earlier career.
Yeah.
Just looping in and getting back just to, relating to yesterday's shift. I had one death notification that I had to do of a 60-year-old gentleman that unfortunately did not make it. It was a pre-hospital cardiac arrest that was resuscitated and did not make it. So presumed cardiac. But being present, dealing with families at that point in time, we as emergency providers are tasked with so much in this whole process of juggling, multiple patients in need.
Totally. Yeah. And what about this? I'm one of the reasons why I do what I do and create impact is I believe on the back end of this, before even the pandemic, but on the back end of this pandemic is we look at mental health and we look at suicide. We look at kids who are lost and empty right now. I think about faith. I think about how do we get out of this? What would you, from your experience, say in what you're studying and what you do? You talked about mental health. You talked about faith. The next steps, where do we go from here? What do we need to double down on?
So for me, that's a great question. I think, in your book, one of the things that really stood out to me here at this point in time, as I just make a reference, is, in your Get Your Mind Right book, page 111, we're living in a world of distraction and we're living in a world of addiction. And you just talking about what I witness, on a daily basis when people come into the emergency department. I think it can easily be said that there is not one person on the globe who has not been impacted or challenged or touched in a way since this pandemic has started where we've struggled. And I think that your message of, getting your mind right, teaching, these principles, you just go through your 10 chapters. I could kind of list through, those dreaming big and not, living in fear, attacking your fears and looking at this as an opportunity tower and not an elimination tower like you were on Strong. And finding that strength from your family. I know that your family has empowered you to continue to dream and have these God-sized dreams and create this message in your impact show that you've shared. And as a frontline provider, my family has given me that strength and fortitude to continue on and, dream big. As you make reference to, what is between your ears, don't let that be your enemy, make that be your strength. Just trying to teach these principles, I think that we can get your message to more and more people to engage on the process of making sure your mind is right and not trying to turn to alcohol, cannabis, opiates, methamphetamine, all the addiction that's out there right now. If we can bring in this whole concept of let's lead a more faithful, prayerful life where our minds are not contaminated with all these toxins and evils that are out there, and making just kind of better choices. Addiction is about people that are just hurting, right? People are in search of a sense of community and connection. And I think that we can do great things to try and help educate and prevent and lead people down a much better path, by using your get your mind right principles and your God-sized dreams, and, taking the time each month, on February the 1st, I sit down and dial in
your 10 forms of
my
wealth.
10 forms of wealth and my 3 and 30 and start creating, what I want to accomplish here this month alone. And, applying that, to my family, faith, fitness, fun, finance, and friends, so that I can achieve the goals that I want.
Mark that tape, my friends. That right. You rewind that a couple times. You know what I just love you just said? And not so much as in the GSD, just back that up. Because you talked about essentially, how do you get your mind right when your mind ain't right? It's easy to say, well, don't drink or don't do this. When your mind is right, it's easy. But what about when your mind ain't right? What about when you don't physically feel good, or you mentally don't feel like you want to feel? It's easy to numb yourself temporarily. Consciously, I know everyone listening, we're all smart beings. My plea, Doc's plea today, is make sure that you continue to listen on repeat over and over. You talk about get your mind right, get your mind right, get your mind right, is you make the decision to get up and move your body when you don't feel like it. It's cold out. Good. Move. Oh, it's raining out. Good. Get out and feel the elements. Oh, it's snowing. It's -5 degrees. Love it. Get out there and feel a little snow and get a little energy from the snow. Oh, it's icy. Good. Go out there and ice skate. Go out and ski. Oh, I don't feel like eating and I feel like eating sugar and a bunch of junk. Don't do it. Don't eat what you feel like it. Eat what you know you should. These are reminders, and you know it cognitively. My plea, as you know what you need to do, is you listen to Doc talk, and you hear me talk all the time. It's doing what you don't feel like doing when you know that you need to do it. Do what you know you need to do, not what you feel like doing. If you're basing it on feelings, you're in trouble. If you did what you always feel like doing, listen, you're going to be in trouble. Do what you know you need to do. That's why we talk about the GSD, the God-Sized Dreams Planner, or getting your mind right. It's the simple fact, when you write it down, it becomes clear what you need to do. And you share it with your spouse or your kids or me or someone in your community or other fire-breathing dragons. Now, all of a sudden, you're being held more accountable. Doc, by showing what his plans are, guess what? He's going to get a little, yoo-hoo! Yo, Doc, it's me. It's 5:30. You know what you got to be doing. My friends, today, it's a reminder. It's a reminder. I don't care what you do for a living. If you're on the front line of defense, if you're in the military, if you're a physician, if you're an attorney, if you're a teacher, if you're a police officer, if you're a firefighter, if you're working at the clergy, if you're working at the desk over at Vaughn's, whatever it is you do, it's not the darn title that you wear. It's how you're showing up for those who you serve. Man, Doc, I'm fired up again. You got me fired up.
Wow.
What's going on?
I love that.
Let's end with this as far as just where you're at with things. We talk about getting your mind right, and we talk about God-sized dreams. What's your God-sized dream? What's next? What's 2022 as you process this? I know it's an evolution, but what's your GSD?
So my God-sized dreams is to find, that inner peace and be able to, practice my work at the best that I can. And most importantly is to, improve the connection that I have in all the roles that I'm doing. I think that right now, finding myself, at 52, with, being a husband, a father, a son, and just feeling like I can perform at the best level and meet the needs of all those relationships. That's a big goal of mine here this year.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you, because what you do is making a huge impact. I didn't know it was 75,000 people visiting the hospital, and obviously the 7,000 people in the last couple of years, but it really didn't come down to numbers. It's the one person that you're going to see tomorrow whose life is on the line, right? And they're going to look in your eyes, and their life in some ways is dependent on the hope that they have in you. And obviously God's given you a skill set that you've learned. But but it just brings me great joy to know that on the back of that cross says impact, because in some way I feel like, you reading the books and in the God-Sized Dreams Planner, that you're being reminded of the gifts that you have. Like every one of us has specific, unique gifts. And I can't say thank you enough for what you've done, not just in the last 2 years, but in your life and serving this country in the last 2 years, obviously, but most importantly, what you're going to do to continually impact people and save lives. And isn't that what you do and why you do it, man? It just brings me such joy. Man. Is there any other questions that I should be asking you that I'm not? Things that are on your heart that you feel is important to say, and where you're at with your walk with everything?
Sure. Yeah, it's, you come into these things with so many things that you want to say. And, one of the big things that I do want to tackle this year is to get over my big, scary, audacious goal here. And so, I'll be frank and open with you that the big goal that I have is to overcome some pain and letting go of my parents' divorce that happened 30 years ago. And so I'm in the process of reconnecting, with my own father in some ways. And I know that, in reading your book, you were very open and honest and shared, at your college experience when your dad unfortunately did pass of a heart attack, and shared the letter that he had written you. And the inspiration that has provided you to continue to be your best version of self. As you shared that message, as I was reading your book, I really honestly reminded myself of how important it is going to be for me to work on reconnecting and letting go and accepting some of the challenges 30 years ago when I was a second-year medical student when my parents got divorced. And, I still am working on and processing these things. This is the picture of myself and my brother and my mother and father from Christmas of 1991. And this was our last family photo. And here I am 30 years later now, still kind of trying to process the family falling apart at that point in time. And so Julie and Gary, her husband Gary, and making this connection is really going to help me inspire to try to let go, to heal, and reconnect with my father, who I love with all my heart. And I know that it's time that I need to move forward and try to let go and heal with my family and my core four. My family with my spouse, I've been married now 18 years. We've been together 20 years. We have two beautiful daughters that are 15 and 17, Kayla and Samantha. And working on that inspiration of the core four and kind of being that best father and husband. But my big scary goal that you've challenged me to do is to heal and overcome my own family's breakup. And I actually just got touched this week. My dad and I are going to embark on a journey. We just ordered this book this week, A Round of Golf with My Father, The New Psychology of Exploring Your Past to Make Peace with Your Present. And it's a new book that had just come out that he and I are going to kind of go on this journey together.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are deep in there. My father was a marriage and family therapist and worked at Springfield College for his career. And So Julie's husband, Gary, they played football together at Springfield College.
I've heard the war stories.
The undefeated team, right? Yeah. And, but I think the message that I want to share with you is that, in sharing your story and being open and honest with, some of the struggles and challenges that you've faced is going to help inspire others to really spend the time and tackle these things now and help, get rid of and let go and inspire to move forward. So I just want you to know the impact that it's having on my own personal life and the work that I'm doing. I'm really at a new level of hope. Hope is my word for the year. My one word and short phrase theme for 2022 is hope.
Wow.
And hope being at many levels, personally and professionally. And I'm confident, that 11 months from now, when 2022 and we're rolling into 2023, that I'm going to be in just a really amazing place with only better days ahead.
Isn't that interesting? It's interesting that all your patients have hope in you to save their life, and your word is hope, right? For a better tomorrow and that. And I want to thank you for sharing that, because it's interesting. Everyone's got something. Everyone's got something. And when you say, hey, thanks for me sharing, I remember as my folks got divorced when I was 5, it took me probably 15, 20 years to even get comfortable even sharing that they were divorced. I hated saying that in the beginning, when I was a kid in high school and college. I didn't share that. And I got more comfortable as I got older and letting some of that go, because I wanted to have a fruitful marriage and relationship and that as well. And I'm looking at this picture of you and your brother Bryce. Go elliptico, baby. And your mom and dad, how cool it's come full circle here with a round of golf with my father. And, shout out to you. I opened up the newspaper recently. I saw Dr. Clay Whiting with an impact band around his wrist in the ER at
Amen.
Mercy. And I had about 25 text messages like, who's this doctor at Scripps Mercy wearing the impact band? I said, that's my new guy.
That's
I'm gonna
right.
Get him on the podcast. So I can't say thank you enough, man. Thank you so much for the journey that you're on, right?
Thank you. Yeah. And I will just want to say just a couple quick things.
Sure.
As I am getting my mind right here, the important thing that I've embraced is, the whole fitness journey. Yeah. And to me, getting that daily dose of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, the endorphins, and getting that clarity of mind. I can't overemphasize to, all of the people that are out there, the importance of taking that daily dose of fitness in one way or form. And movement is medicine. I'm 110% convinced that the more we can get people moving, the better we are all going to perform and the better world we're going to have out there in terms of prevention and things that go. And, a plea to others that are out there in ways that we can have impact would be to, request listeners to go ahead and call your local blood banks so that, you can step up and donate blood. We have a critical shortage of blood supply here throughout our country, particularly in San Diego County. I can tell you last night in the emergency department, we had a young man, unfortunately, in a major motor vehicle accident with a prolonged extrication who had a below-the-knee amputation, had a tourniquet on, had another mangled extremity, had to get blood products in the emergency department with transfusion of a couple units of packed red blood cells. We had a massive upper GI bleeder that took 16 units of blood just to try and save his life. So know that as listeners out there, one of the things that you can do to help have impact and make sure that we don't have any preventable deaths in any recent time coming up is to get out and just take the time to donate blood. It makes a huge difference on what we do on the front lines for people.
Isn't it amazing? As soon as you started talking turkey, you started talking fast. You started talking in your rhythm that you would have up at the ER, how boom, 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 how quick it is. How would they do that? How does someone, if they've never donated blood, how do they do it?
You can reach out to the San Diego County Blood Bank. I personally, shared that message when I was interviewed in the UT about the importance of doing that. I have my own appointment scheduled next week on February 7th to walk the walk and to donate the blood myself. I had to wait 28 days until after COVID in order to do that.
And you can do that nationally, folks. It's not just obviously everywhere around the country, around the world right now. Donate blood. So see your local blood bank and donate blood. This is my final question. This is the Impact Show, Doc. The legacy of Dr. Clay Whiting. If there's 3, 4, 5 words that your legacy, your impact is all about, or a short sentence, what's the legacy of Dr. Whiting going to be about?
The legacy is going to be about inspiring our youth to be their best selves. And it's about prevention, and it's about, getting your mind right and applying these principles to live your best life. There's so much that I could share, the different challenges that you will be faced with and you overcome. But if you can, follow these 10 basic principles that you lay out in your chapter of getting your mind right, we're going to be a better world. And, prevention, making the right choices, having, a strong faith is going to, help kind of lead that
Absolutely.
Legacy.
Well, it sounds to me like you need your own show. and how your daughter, Sam, you inquired here initially for your daughter, Sam, and look where you've come, right? It's interesting. And I hope you have the opportunity to work with Sam someday in the near future, you reaching out for that and then finding a whole new world to ultimately help allow you impact thousands or maybe millions of people in your lifetime fires me up. And again, from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you for all you have done and all that you're going to do for creating impact in this universe. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let's have some impact.
Man, oh man, was that an enjoyable conversation. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dr. Clay Whiting. As I reflect on that episode of some of my takeaways, I think first and foremost, I hear and feel the word faith. Dr. Whiting, who has given his time relentlessly in the last 2 years as a frontline warrior, literally from the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the thousands of people who he's literally touched, and how he's reconnected with his own faith. The one thing that he shared with me that is inspiring is that now when he goes into work at Scripps Mercy Hospital here in San Diego, every shift starts first with going to the chapel. And that to me, just his recommitment to his connection with God and to his faith is just absolutely inspiring. The other thing I think about is his workout. He talked about how he doesn't have a regular routine with his workout, but he always gets it in. Many times we think we've got to schedule a workout and it's always going to be 6:30 in the morning or 5 in the morning or 6 at night. Is that the irregularity that Clay has with his workouts? He always finds a way to get that in, because he talked about what I share in the book called dose. Not the dose of Durkin, the dose. The dopamine, the oxytocin, the serotonin, and the endorphins are absolutely imperative if you want to live and be at your best. So my friends, remember that. Whether you're a busy professional, physician, teacher, entrepreneur, whatever it is you do, you must find a way to get your body and your mind right. The other thing that brings me great joy in listening to Clay speak is his reconnection with his father. And it made me think while he was sharing that is we all have something. We all got something that in the back of our mind is holding us back, or we wish we could resolve this or solve that. And his connection, his commitment to rekindle his relationship with his father after years of pain and anguish about his parents' split. Here's a 52-year-old man who is yearning to deepen his relationship with his father. It doesn't matter if you're 22, you're 52, you're 82 years old. We're always looking to get better. And I'll end today's episode with this. This isn't about your growth, your ongoing growth. Dr. Clay Whiting epitomizes a fire-breathing dragon, a mind-right maniac who just happened to stumble across this podcast just a couple months ago. Not even, like literally the early January, on the back end of him getting COVID as a physician, he finds the God-Sized Dreams Planner, he gets the book, and now he's living it and making the changes necessary. So perhaps today you're a new listener. Maybe you're listening for the first time and that was the first episode and you're like, where do I start? You start with listening to these episodes, making sure you subscribe to these episodes, picking up the God-Sized Dreams Planner, and taking action. Taking action. Maybe you are feeling empty. You're lost. You're frustrated. You're burnt out. You're like, man, I need more. I need to get to the next level. There's something deeper in there in my profession or in my relationship with my spouse or as a parent. There's something more. I can be better. Yes, we all can be. And that's the commitment that we're all on. And Dr. Clay Whiting talks about that so eloquently today on the episode. So my plea today is that you go deep. And as you reflect upon this episode, that as you commit to doing more work on yourself, whether it be in the God-Sized Dreams Planner or your own personal journal, or as you read your books that inspire you, that every single day you own the moment. You own the moment and you become the best version of you. And that, to me, is impact. Until next time, remember, train hard, eat right, live inspired, and go create impact.